And welcome into another episode of Tiger Territory, part of the Foul Territory Network, a Detroit Tigers podcast. I'm Kieran Steckley. With me, as always, is a man that I hold more dear than the Tigers hold their top prospects. Stavenhagen, how you doing?
That would require a pretty tight hug there. Like, here, the trade deadline just passed. These things are always hard to talk about. I am not going to have coherent thoughts. I'm not going to be able to analyze these players as in depth as I would like because my head's everywhere. I've been staring at three screens all day. I guess from the jump, my quick take is this doesn't seem like a great deadline for the Tigers. And yet, believe it or not, I think the outrage on Twitter is probably a little bit over the top. So I think we're going to devote this episode to kind of trying to arrive at the right way to feel about this deadline. I wish they would have done a little more, specifically in the bullpen. We were never calling for Yohan Duran. We were never calling for Eugenio Suarez. We were never calling for Sandy Alcantara. But you look around and it feels like a lot of marginal moves that while they do probably improve the team, the bullpen somewhat, it's hard to walk away like excited, especially when you look at some other moves teams around the league were making.
Yes, this is again, we're recording this just a couple hours after the deadline. So this is a feel podcast. I like that you brought that word in there, the F word podcast, the F word being feel, because on one hand, it does feel like you went to the grocery store and you were intent on getting like a T-bone steak or a ribeye, but you didn't really like the price point. And so you decide, all right, I'll get some hamburgers at this price, maybe a couple pork chops, and you can feel good about not overpaying for something that you wanted, but at the same time, you're also not eating steak tonight, and so you gotta realize like that's the cost, and another way of using that word. And just before we get too far into thoughts and feelings, Charlie Morton, Kyle Finnegan, Rafael Montero, Paul Sewald, Chris Paddock, and obviously already there, Cody Hewer, and Randy Dobnak, and then technically speaking, Joseph Quinonez
No idea on that one.
is also, but he's a single A player, so doesn't affect the major league product. So this is essentially a pitching supplement deadline for the Tigers.
Zero hitters, one starting
hitters,
pitcher,
and
several relievers.
And I can't get disappointed, Cody, like a lot of people are on Tigers Twitter, because quite frankly, I kind of expected something like this to happen. We had talked about this. It's like, here's what I'm going to do on Thursday, and this is exactly what I did. I said they're going to require Kyle Finnegan, and I'm going to go in there and I'm going to look at his baseball savant page, and I'm going to be like, yep, that's why, ground ball pitcher. And I'm going to go to Montero's page, and then it's like, and wait for it. Okay, that percentile. Yep, that's why. And they're just gonna try to get all these little pieces, these little assets to try to form a more cohesive bullpen, or at least have more options in the bullpen. And from that perspective, the Tigers were largely successful. This is probably the only publication, podcast, anything that the phrase "the Tigers were very successful" will be uttered, because in their minds, I think they are, and they never ventured out of character. Like once you saw some price points for some other guys, like you could kind of see, like, yeah, not like what the Diamondbacks got for Merrill Kelly. It's like, yeah, don't really expect the Tigers to do that. You know what I mean? And so,
Well, yeah, but you also look at some other deals. The Ryan Helsley deal. The Cardinals got three prospects from the Mets. Three prospects feels like a lot. I'm not sure the quality of those prospects were held in great demand. I think the Tigers have a good enough and deep enough farm system. They could have put together a similar, if not better, package. And we're not talking up giving Max Clark or Kevin McGonigal or even Tyron Lorenzo. But you dig a little deeper into their system, I think they could have put together a competitive package. And I think especially in the bullpen, this is where it gets to be a difficult conversation. I tried to mention this a while back. You are getting a relief pitcher for 2 months. Best case scenario, maybe this guy's going to be worth 1.0 WAR. So how much better is Ryan Helsley going to be than Kyle Finnegan down the stretch? Realistically, he might not be that much better, at least if we're judging the game through the lens of like wins above replacement. Literally, it's hard for any reliever in that short of a time frame to be that much better than a replacement player. I think that's one reason the Tigers did not deem these guys worth the high asking prices, especially if it's a rental type relief pitcher. But again, when you were in first place, when you were pushing for the World Series, how important is WAR? How important is winning every deal? I think my colleague Stephen Nesbitt at The Athletic summed it up well. He, believe it or not, included the Tigers as losers of the trade deadline. But let's look at what he wrote. He talked about, hey, the Tigers were active. They made a lot of deals. I was very busy all day. But then he said, where are the bats? Where are the stud late inning relievers? The issue is not that the Tigers lost the individual trades. It's that they were so unwilling to overpay on elite relievers that they didn't come close to landing any of them. Instead, they incrementally improved and didn't raid their prospect stash. Feels great until it's the ninth inning of a playoff game and you could have had Ryan Helsley or David Bednar trotting in from the bullpen. I think that's a pretty nice way to sum this up. We could go deal by deal. Tigers might not lose any of them. If Rafael Montero unlocks something and has a nice August and September, the Tigers we may look on this when we analyze it by WAR to sum up the Scott Harris era, however many years from now, and be like, oh, that was okay. But did you do enough to give your team a better shot to win the World Series? Even if we're talking 1 or 2 wins, that could be the difference between a bye and having to go into a snake pit during the wild card round and hope you can win 2 or 3. I think these things matter, and that's why I wish the Tigers would have done a little more. I'm not saying a lot more. I'm saying a little more. Maybe one really trustworthy, proven, back-end caliber reliever who's healthy. Because Paul Sewald is actually all those things. He's just not going to pitch until September. Because although it's probably better than Luke Jackson, Chase Lee, your bullpen gets a little better, I think, through these moves. Kyle Finnegan, this guy's been a closer. This guy was an all-star last year. He's a good pitcher. Doesn't really get swing and miss, which is such a pressing need, but he does some good things. I'm rambling here, Kieran, so where do you want to take this thing next?
Well, and I encourage everybody to watch this on YouTube. If you could pull up the graphic there again, Cody. This is so perfectly written that it's almost one of those. Really, nothing more needs to be said. Is that they were so unwilling to overpay on elite relievers. I mean, that's it. Like, like that could also be a compliment, by the way. Like in a different context of what we're talking about here. And then, like, I did want to go to one thought that I had throughout the day when the moves were kind of slowly coming out, and you saw all these guys either rumored to other teams or eventually went to other teams. One of the things that I was looking for that did not come about was a Gleyber Torres type move, and what I mean by that is like something outside the box of what everybody is anticipating. But when it happens, you go, oh, that makes a lot of sense. Maybe it's not as natural fit as anything else that we were expecting, but it raises the floor of this team in, some fashion. Like, I mean, I know we had talked about it, but like a Willie Castro type deal, or, something like that, where it's like, it adds another wrinkle to the team. And you're like, oh, okay, that didn't happen. That was probably, if I were to say, like, disappointed, as much as like getting 7 pitchers is kind of a revamping of your pitching staff. I never really thought like, oh, okay, like here's a new wrinkle to the team that they're adding. Even if you get 7 new pitchers, it's not really none of these guys are new wrinkles. I was kind of hoping for something that was closer to like a new wrinkle, even because I anticipated they weren't going to make the asking price for a lot of these top guys. So, and and we don't know what conversations were had that didn't come about. Not everybody that you thought should have been traded was traded. So, there's obviously a lot that we don't know. But we're going to take a quick break. But afterward, we're pretty soon after Cody heard from Scott Harris. So we're going to ask for Cody's thoughts on Scott Harris's thoughts, and then the quote that's going to reign supreme in Tigerland. But first, a word from our sponsors.
Do you have the best VPN in the game? Are you saving enough on your VPN? You got to check out surfshark.com/Val or use the code FOUL at checkout on the site to get 4 extra months of Surfshark VPN. There's a risk-free 30-day money-back guarantee at surfshark.com/Val. Kratz, if you're on the go a lot, you got to check out Surfshark.
It's a no-brainer. I'm at the beach, so I should know something about a surf shark. Just saying. Get it done. 30 days.
That's right. Secure your digital life with Surfshark VPN. You can hit the link below for 4 extra months of Surfshark, either on the podcast page or on the YouTube channel. Don't let online threats catch you off guard. This has been your tech update. You want to keep your data safe and make sure you check out Surfshark today. It's a 30-day money-back guarantee. You can secure your digital world right now.
All right, coming back here, like I said before, Cody has just heard from Scott Harris. He met with the local media, as is tradition, and I'm guessing I could guess what Scott Harris's tone and what he said and like what his real message was. But you heard it yourself. So why don't you take it away?
Yeah, I think if you can, like most things, I don't really disagree with any of the points Scott Harris made, but if we dive into, I think the gist of what he said, a lot of it, I mean, here's a quote. A lot of the moves we passed on felt like moves that were going to haunt us for many years to come. We felt like we have one of the best, if not the best farm system in all of baseball. We felt like at this moment in time in this organization, giving up young players to chase short-term fixes is not in the best interest of the Tigers. Probably could have predicted Scott would say something like that, right? And that's all fine and good. Clearly, they were focused on the future, and I don't know. There was a lot of talk around the league about do teams covet prospects too much. I think at this deadline, the Tigers are the hallmark, are the showcase of a team that really valued its prospects. Again, it's fair to draw comparisons to what the Orioles have done in past years, and that has not served the Orioles well. And I don't think teams around the league were thrilled with the Tigers either. Every year, this time of year, I hear people complaining about Scott Harris and that he is difficult to deal with from a baseball perspective. I think that was loud as ever this year. The Tigers are very hardline negotiators. Maybe that can serve them well. I also do worry that it's getting to a point like our relationships eroding with other clubs to where it could hurt the Tigers in future deadlines. I was in communication with some people from rival teams today. The word embarrassing was thrown around regarding the Tigers deadline, talking about being overly allegiant to their models, these project type guys like Rafael Montero. Scott Harris did say he kind of rejects the premise that these are all projects. And I agree. Kyle Finnegan's not a project. Kyle Finnegan's a very proven, consistent, quality major league reliever. A little bit down in the first half, but this guy's pretty good. I am just worried that he doesn't get swing and miss. I think Montero is 1,000,000% a project. He does some nice things. He also walks a lot of guys. Harris pointed, his walk rate since May 1 is closer to 10%, which is still, I believe, above league average, but I suppose more manageable. Paul Sewald's been a very good pitcher, probably a couple years past his prime. He's hurt. We'll see. Cody Hewer's going to report to AAA. I actually kind of like him. He's got some extension, pretty good fastball. I don't know if he'll pitch in the major leagues, but he interests me as much as any of the guys they got. So maybe we should just talk about the money quote, which I think was Harris talking about Scooble and the window, Kieran.
Yeah. So we'll read it. And again, if you should watch this on YouTube, you can read it yourself. But this is Scott Harris speaking to the media. I think this idea of a window is an illusion. I think there's a lot of talent in this organization. I think All-Star break to All-Star break, we have the most wins in all of Major League Baseball. And Tarek Skubal, most certainly leading the way and has been leading the way here. I'm not looking at this as a window. It doesn't mean I'm shorting the present. Can't believe you used the term for shorting. It does not mean I'm shorting the present for the future by any means, but this whole idea of a window is not really filtering into my head because it's my job to get to the postseason every single year if I can. So this is the perfect example. My first thoughts on this, Cody. This is the perfect example of organizational disconnect from general baseball discourse. And like, could be a bad thing, could be a good thing, but like every single person that covers the game, that I would probably say is in the game to a certain extent, would look at this as like, you got Scooble for this year, next year, nothing else is guaranteed. Nothing else is guaranteed. And so this is your best time to win. And that is Scott Harris, his own words, rejecting that notion, like flat out.
Mhm.
And so like you talk about like, being difficult to work with, too loyal to models, blah, 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 blah. Like that's all kind of in the weeds, somewhat speculation. People could be having sour grapes, like all that stuff.
Sure.
This is not that. This is him saying our way. I'm not going to say my way because I think he does value his teammates there. Our way is our way, and we're not deviating it because you think that we should go all in because we have Scooble under team control for another 18 months. So that is your president of baseball operations laying it flat out. Is that a problem? Maybe it is. Maybe it's not. But it's not a ringing endorsement of a team that is at or near first place in baseball with the best pitcher. It has a chance to do something that no American leaguer has done since Roger Clemens.
I'd love to know Derek Scooble's unfiltered thoughts and unfiltered thoughts of other guys in that clubhouse. In a way, it's a vote of confidence of every single guy in that clubhouse. They didn't go get another hitter. It's basically Scott saying, "Hey, I think you guys are solid. You guys can do this." And in a way, if you're a guy at the top of that roster and you're having a great year and you really want to get yourself a ring and you're like, really? Like, got some more kind of fringy type pitchers and Kyle Finnegan, who's like pretty good. But I look across the aisle and AJ Preller is going and getting his team Mason Miller, which is an extreme example, of course. But there's some other teams, man. The Mets that were very active, that got more dominant arms to bolster their bullpen. I'm looking at that. I'm going, hey, why aren't we doing that here? It's a fair question to ask. If you're a young player, maybe you're excited because the Tigers do have a good farm system. But we all know counting on prospects is a dangerous thing. And again, we're not talking about just the Tigers' top 5 or 6 prospects here. They traded, am I right? They traded one top 30 prospect, Josh Randall, who was their number 15 prospect. Solid pitcher.
Ball guy, yeah.
Like, I don't know. Like, I don't know, man. I think a lot of these guys are going to be replaceable players, or you could even view it. The Tigers are so good at identifying players from waivers or DFAs from other teams. Like, they can probably replicate that production on the cheap elsewhere. I don't know that you need all 30 plus top prospects to have a sustainable winner. I think that's important to consider here. It's a hard discussion, right? Do you go quote unquote all in? I don't know. But I think you can do a little bit of the in between to give more value to a team that isn't in first place, that does have a real shot to do something special this year. Right now, you're hoping Kyle Finnegan has a better second half, and you're hoping Paul Sewald gets healthy and is Paul Sewald of 2 years ago, and you're hoping one of these other guys you acquired pitches well. Like, and is that going to be enough? We haven't even talked about Charlie Morton yet, who's had quite the interesting first half. He has been better of late. You look at this rotation now, Kieran. Scooble, Mize can be really good. He's been up and down. He's going through a rough spell. Flaherty has been really up and down this year, going through a better spell lately. Chris Paddock, it's been a 4th or 5th starter his entire career. Charlie Morton, this guy's 41 years old. I don't know that feels to me like a great starting rotation right now. I don't know how confident I feel about that in the playoffs.
Well, again, I think they just kind of told you that they're less worried about starting rotations in playoffs and more worried.
They did go get a starter like I wanted at least.
Yeah. I think a good way to kind of like summarize what we've been talking about for the past like 20-ish minutes is I think there's a lot of it's fair X. I think it's fair to say that they definitely didn't rest on their laurels in terms of what of the bullpen that everyone knows was a problem. So they didn't do nothing. They acquired a lot of additional assets. I think it's fair to say that like it's probably not worth trading your top prospects for, rental players or guys with another year of control. I think that's also fair to say. It's also fair to say that they were not the only team that operated with the notion of we're not going to give up our best assets, but we're still going to, for lack of a better way to phrase it, kind of headline improve our team. Like you list out the Yankees and the Mets. Like these are active teams that didn't necessarily give up everything. It's also fair to say that some of these other teams have been perennial playoff teams of years past. And so their window, if we're going to use that term, is like more on the back end potentially than the Tigers, who have obviously just entered their window. I think it's also fair to say that there's not a sense of urgency to win your division because the Twins basically got rid of their entire roster. The Guardians, traded away Bieber. The Class A thing lingers, and obviously you got Seawald from them as well. The Royals did do some good things. So I'm not completely dismissing the division, but it's not like you're in the American League East, and it's not like you're competing right now. It's not like you're competing with all these like the Rangers and all these teams that made like kind of big time moves to try to separate themselves in the wild card race. You're separate from that in a way. So there's a little bit of a cushion there. Should you be shooting higher? Like, I understand all that, but I'm saying it's fair to say that there's a cushion there for what they can try to do here in the, kind of last 2 months of the season. And so all that stuff can be true, and it can still be underwhelming. Somebody texted me, like, what did you think of their return of the trade deadline? I was like, well, underwhelming, not unsurprising. And I think that might be the
absolutely.
I think that might be the best way to phrase it. So I did want to just address a couple, what I would say would be lingering questions in the immediate aftermath. And we're gonna, like I said, we're gonna talk about this more. So this is just kind of like instant reaction stuff. We'll see with a little bit of sleep, like how we think about the trade deadline. But I think the number one question, Cody, is our American League contenders, which is, not a short list because there's no like, oh my God, team in the American League. Our American League contenders happy that the Tigers did not make a monumental or just short of monumental move at the deadline? I kind of think yes.
I think absolutely yes. I mean, I don't think it necessarily would have been prudent to give up the prospect capital it probably would have taken to get a Eugenio Suarez or Mason Miller or whatever. But if the Tigers had done that and just parted with, big time prospects, guys would be looking like, I'm scared of the Tigers right now. I would argue before this, I'd say I don't know who the best team in the American League is. I think the Tigers certainly have a case for being the most complete team if they were able to improve their bullpen. That's a must, and maybe they have. Right now, man, I'm thinking it's the Seattle Mariners or the Texas Rangers. Like, these are teams with very good pitching staffs. The Mariners, very good pitching staff, had been playing well offensively, and they just got two corner infield power hitting types in Naylor and Suarez. Like, they pushed themselves to a higher level, whereas the Tigers are kind of trying to round things out, I guess. If I'm another team in the American League, absolutely. I'm saying there's no reason to believe we can't beat the Tigers in the playoffs right now.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's definitely. I would look at the Rangers as a sleeping giant for a playoff series, whether it be 3 games, 5 games, 7 games. Like with that pitching staff and with still very talented hitters, like that's a team that could potentially scare me. Not gonna lie. And Seattle, credit to what they did. Obviously, the Yankees are the Yankees. The Blue Jays we just saw. So, like, this is not going to be a cakewalk once you get to October. Another question. I wrote this down before the Morton trade was announced, so it's probably void. But I wrote it down, so I'm gonna say it. Like the fact that they didn't at the time I wrote this down didn't get a starting pitcher. They obviously got Morton. Since then, like, is there any level you think there's any level of optimism that they might be able to use Olsen in the postseason? It's been a couple days. They've done some more tests. Like, had they not gotten a starting pitcher, I would have said like, maybe there is. Now I don't know, but I wrote it down. I didn't know if you have any inkling on that.
have no idea. If I had to guess, probably not. I mean, if this is an injury that's keeping him out for the regular season, I wonder what, the ultimate diagnosis is going to be or what further testing is going to show. Or like I said, regardless, if Reese has missed 2 months, are you sure you want to just pop him back in there in the middle of a playoff series? I think the Tigers have more optimism on Jose Urquidy coming back and doing something, whether it be rotation or maybe a swingman role. We should note Troy Melton's moving into the bullpen, which he might end up being pretty good back there. Maybe in a way that's a big bullpen addition. Short innings, swing and miss stuff.
Yeah.
That's not nothing. And yeah, I think they have a lot riding on Jose Urquidy, although probably smartly, like he's not as important, I guess, now that you've at least got someone to start games. We'll see what Charlie Morton can end up providing you.
And lastly, what do you think? We kind of touched on it a little bit, but I'll have to see. You're going to be in Philadelphia. We'll talk about that this weekend, like what the clubhouse reaction is to most of these guys being involved as buyers at the trade deadline for the first time, and if there is some sort of vote of confidence that they feel, or or what they would admit or whatever. I'll be very curious about how those guys feel, especially the position players, because again, like it's kind of your deal. So yeah, and one of the guys that you would imagine that would have a vote of confidence is Zack McKinstry, who is our chart topper of the week presented by DraftKings. So Zack McKinstry is a guy that I think, like, I'd love to see him get back going recently, Cody. He had the home run earlier this week, and I was thinking and looking at the lineup, one of the games, either Wednesday, Tuesday, whatever, it doesn't matter. It's like he's batting 7th or something like that, and I was like, man, how cool is it to write a lineup card and to have Zack McKinstry, utility man, star, all star, and you can pencil him at 7 and know that that's like a high impact area of your lineup, and that it doesn't even include the defensive versatility, blah, 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 blah. So, especially now, post trade deadline, is there a way to measure or articulate the value of Zack McKinstry?
I think the Tigers have a lot riding on Zack McKinstry to continue the way he played when he had an all-star first half. They've clearly had faith in this guy. They brought him in. They wrote out some hard times with him. They've been seeing the payoff so far this year. Has he been playing out of his mind? Is he going to keep hitting left-handed pitching at this clip? Like, I think it's fair to have doubts just based on career track record. Like, that's not even doubting him. That's just like, if we're going to look at this from a numbers perspective, like, the Tigers must not see it that way. I mean, they seem to have supreme confidence. Had they brought in Suarez, had they brought in anyone to play third base, that would affect the way McKinstry plays. He talked about being fine with that, if it meant improving the team. The Tigers thought those moves didn't necessarily mean improving the team, or at least not at the stake of what it would cost. Scott Harris said a question they kept coming back to was like, is X player better than the player we already have? It seems like the answers to a lot of those questions we've talked about, like options for different platoon hitters or guys who could fit this roster. Those answers must have been no. Zack McKinstry, you're kind of in the spotlight, man. You are going to continue playing every day on a first place team, on a team heading to the playoffs. You're a big part of this, I guess you should be proud. I think he's earned it based on how he has played, but will it continue? Probably one of the bigger questions for the Tigers in August and September.
Is he the same guy? Has he been the same guy all year? Like, you talk to him at an all-star game. So
Yeah. No, Zack is Zack. He's a guy from Indiana who went to Central Michigan, who never probably expected to fully be in this spotlight that we're talking about now. It's actually been kind of cool to see how he's handled that.
Yeah, absolutely. And that brings us to our pick of the week, again, presented by DraftKings. And it's Zack McKinstry, 3+ total bases. You can get this. It's probably changed since the time we recorded, but you can get this at plus 275. That's bet $100, win $275 for the uninitiated. And the reason I chose this is Friday, the Tigers are in Philadelphia, a team that's kind of regarded as a winner of the trade deadline. and they're putting out there Ranger Suarez, and he's a lefty whose number one pitch is the sinker. So you talked like McKinstry hits lefties this year. How does he hit lefties? Against lefty starters, Cody, he's 302, 547 with a 922 OPS. It's pretty
That's
good.
wild. That's wild.
It's pretty good. And like I said, Suarez is a sinker ball pitcher. That's his number one used pitch 29% of the time. But he does give up almost a 300 average on that pitch. It's a little high. Expected batting average is about 266. So, just throw the variance in there. But McKinstry hits sinkers well, generally. He has a 3-run value on Baseball Savant against sinkers. And fun fact of the day, Zack McKinstry leads Major League Baseball in triples off lefties. So there you go. Zack McKinstry, 3+ total bases, plus 275, DraftKings Sportsbook.
Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. In New York, call 877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY at 467-369. In Connecticut, help is available for problem gambling. Call 888-789-7777 or visit ccpg.org. Please play responsibly on behalf of Boot Hill Casino and Resort in Kansas. 21 and over. Age and eligibility varies by jurisdiction. Void in Ontario. Bonus bets expire 7 days after issuance. For additional terms and responsible gaming resources, see dkng.co/audio.
All right, here in a second, we're going to throw it to Austin Jackson. We had him relive his trade deadline experience. And as I said on that previous recording, if you're a Tigers fan of a certain age, that's a pretty unforgettable moment. So we'll get his perspective on that. But before we do that, Cody, is there any other scrambled thoughts on a long day? I do want to say this. This was a great day for Major League Baseball. I thought this was a tremendous trade deadline. I thought interest, it was essentially a 48-hour trade deadline, if that makes sense. And I thought that was awesome. I thought this was great for the game. When you expand playoffs, you wanted something like this to occur. So if there's a winner and losers bracket, all the stories should say Major League Baseball is a winner, because I thought it was a tremendous trade deadline.
AJ Preller has to always stay employed. Talk about being someone good for the game. He's yet to make it to a World Series, but man, does he make things fun this time of year. I could keep talking about this stuff for an hour. We'll come back. We'll dive more into the weeds on, I'm sure, some of these players in subsequent episodes. Before we go, I think we got to pour one out for Matt Manning, a legend of our time doing this podcast. Always wondering, could he reach his potential? The answer, at least in the Tigers jersey, will be no. He's gone. He was designated for assignment and then traded to the Phillies. I think the current Tigers regime drafts and evaluates differently, pretty undeniably better than in the Al Avila era. But in a way, Matt Manning is a symbol for all these conversations we have had. Sometimes very talented players just don't become what you want them to be, what you think they can be, what they show glimpses of being. The Matt Manning era is over.
That is true. That was what a time. What to make of Matt Manning. Last time we get to say this on the pod. So thank you, everybody, for listening, following Apple, Spotify, YouTube, Instagram, wherever you get your podcasts. We appreciate all of you. Here in a second, we will throw it to Austin Jackson, who tells us his experiences, multiple experiences, dealing with the trade deadline as a player. So for Cody Stavenhagen, I'm Kieran Steckley. Everybody have a great day. All right. Well, being that it's trade deadline time, I thought it was appropriate to talk to Austin about one particular moment in Tigers history. If you're a Tigers fan of a certain age, July 31st, 2014 is one of those days that you always go back to, because it was kind of the end of an era in a way for Tigers baseball. If you came up watching those teams, you kind of knew that at the time. And that is when Austin Jackson was traded mid-game, technically 3/4 of the way game, from the Tigers to the Mariners, in a trade that eventually got David Price to the Tigers. And, the imagery, the video of you, I wish we could play it, but we don't want to violate any copyright, of you kind of coming off the field, Raji Davis replacing you. And, everybody in the stands kind of knew what was going on. social media and all that stuff plays a part, and you getting kind of like a little bit of a moment in front of the fans. It's heart wrenching, it's heartwarming at the same time, just like from the fan perspective. So I wanted to ask you, as somebody that this was your career, your livelihood at the time, what was that moment like? Can you just kind of take us there, Austin, if you would, to being traded on trade deadline day during a game, no less, a home game too?
Kieran, first of all, man, you said the end of an era. That kind of made me feel a certain way, like in a good way. I was like, oh man, okay, all right, I like that. It's the era that we were in.
Yeah.
But no, I mean, I didn't have social media when I played, which is one thing I kind of regret now, because it's just being able to keep up with people, keep up with fans, and just kind of build your network. I didn't have one, so I didn't know what was going on. You said the fans knew, everybody knew. I didn't know. I didn't know at all. I didn't know so much that when Rajay was, this is how much I didn't know. When Rajay was running out there, I was like, oh, they think I'm hurt. They think I'm hurt.
Wow.
No, I'm good. I looked at Rajay. I'm like, Rajay, what are you doing? No, I'm good, brother. Like, nah. Like, I'm like touching my hand. I'm like, I'm cool. What are you? And then I start kind of running in. Like, what? You just gonna do a little switch up in the lineup? Like, I was out there balling. I think I had a couple hits, maybe a ribby, stolen base, little basket catch. I was like, oh, I'm good. What do you think? Maybe I'm going too hard. All right, man. And so he's running by me, and I'm like, right, what's going on? He's like, yeah, I don't know, Jack. I'm like, what you mean you don't know? You coming in with me. You know something. And so, I'm running off, and I'm like, the fans start to stand up, and they start to, clap and cheer and things like that. And as I get to the dugout, my teammates start standing up. I think Max came up and gave me a big hug. I think Fister did. And then it kind of hit me. I was like, oh, okay, this is what that is. It was tough, man. It was tough not really knowing, but I think that's probably the best way for me. Like, because I don't know if I would have been myself in that situation if I would have known. I think that was kind of my authentic self. That was my genuine self. Just being caught off guard with something. I remember before the game specifically. I remember, and now that I think about it, it was like. Now that I think about it, it was like I was catching, like, how you look up and you catch somebody's eyes and then they kind of turn and look. And I remember doing that, and it's just like, what are y'all being weird for? Like, why I see, like, what, these my boys being, what y'all being weird for? So, I didn't think too much. Look, boom, there it is. That's my guy right there, man. Max, that was my dude. And so I just it caught me off guard, but then you realize once you kind of settle down, you kind of tell yourself, this is the business. This is the business. When I got traded from the Yankees to the Tigers, it was the business, right? Like, I told myself I wanted to play with the Yankees, but the ultimate goal was to play in the big leagues, right? Like, that is the goal. So even being traded in the big leagues, the goal is to be traded to another big league team and contribute to them. So that's how I took it. Right away, I was like, you know what? That's fine. I'm going to go try to, be myself for another team and contribute to them and show them and that they can value me as me, and I can go out and, help this team win ball games. And that's ultimately what you have to think. You can't, get too down on yourself. It's a business. You can be traded at any given time, and you got to take it. Hey, that's a business decision that they made, but that doesn't mean that I can't go out and help another team win.
Austin, I'm always kind of fascinated by the logistics of getting traded, because it's not easy, right? Especially, you got family, you got stuff like that. You got sent, unlike you were traded to Cleveland, you got sent way up there to Seattle.
Yeah.
Like, you find out you're traded, you go back, you change clothes, like, then what?
Dude, you're really kind of in shock. You know what I mean? Like, you try to play this part like, oh yeah, no, everything's good, but really there's this sense of like unknown. Like, you don't know what you're supposed to do. I'm glad I had my wife now, but she's my girlfriend at the time. I'm glad she was on it. Like, she was on it, man. She was already packing when I guess she found out probably probably before I did. You know what I mean? Like I was playing, and so she had already packed. She had already had, like listings for us of where we could stay, hotels where we could stay. She was already in communication with the team. I don't know how she did that, but it was just it was, like I said, you try to put on this mask, but Detroit was that place that I honestly I thought, because again, like when I was with the Yankees, I thought that I was going to be there. I thought I was going to be there for a long time. So it was a shot a little bit, and I was just kind of in the clubhouse, just kind of like, what do I do? Do I wait for this game to be over so I can say bye to the fellas, or do I, need to pack my stuff because they want me there? And they did. They was like, hey, you need to get your stuff, get ready, and we got to get. I think it was in Baltimore. It was in Baltimore. They wanted me to start center field, hit leadoff the next day. I'm like, bro, I can't. Like, can I let it sink in? It's like, no, it's a business, man, and you got to be ready for it. And I understood it at that time. I understood what the job required out of me, and as much friendships as I had built there, and just having that feel like I was part of that city. It was tough, man. It was tough, but I realized very quickly, I got another job to do, and they want me, so I got to go out there and perform for them.
Yeah, I mean, it's it's always easy to say it's a business, but when I can only imagine, actually experiencing it's a business thing.
Yeah.
Not everybody can have that kind of attitude. It seems like you had, again, mature Austin Jackson, always mature, always wise beyond his years.
Thanks,
Had a great understanding. So like, the fact that you weren't on social media at the time, and were like, I don't want to say oblivious, but at least just like not cognizant of what was going on with trade deadline rumors and all that stuff. That probably was a benefit, because now it's probably almost impossible. I know there are guys that don't have it, but everybody does, and everybody hears everything. They hear what we're saying. They read what Cody writes.
Yep.
Like, it's just the reality of the situation. And so, like, I can only imagine what those, what the guys on the team now are going through in terms of they're struggling. Do they need, does someone need to take my job, the metaphorical John Doe player? Is that, is my job at stake? And like all these things, the business aspect of it. It's got to be tough, compounding losing with uncertainty with the trade deadline. I'm sure it was been tough for the fellas.
That's always tough too. Not, that uncertainty of like, I'm not playing well. Are they going to trade me? Are they going to send me down? Are they going to bring up this prospect that, that they keep talking about in the media? Like, is that going to happen? And I'd be lying to you if I didn't read into those things. Like, guys try to act like, I don't read into the media. It's like, stop it. You looked at something, you've looked at yourself, especially when you do good. I'd be in the outfield already rehearsing what I'm going to say in the interview. and then I'd be like, oh yeah, I just stayed on that ball right there, and it's a good pitch. And then we end up losing the game. I'm like, yeah, dang, I gotta save that one for next time. But no, it's just funny, man. Like, we're human, man. Like, you've seen guys cry when they get traded, like, because it's that serious. Like, dudes really build up those friendships, man, and it really means a lot to us, man. Like, it's not like, we understand that, we're making good money, and that, this stuff can be taken away from us. One, wrong step on the bag, you could injure yourself, and be done. One twist of the knee could be done, God forbid that happens. But, we're all human, and we're in it together. And I think when you're in it, sometimes you can lose sight of that. And, when that trade deadline is coming up, and like for me at one point was like, I thought I was playing good enough to where I was like, oh, they're not going to mess with me. But I was like, no, actually, you're playing good. The team ain't. Somebody wants you, So I didn't think about that. I was like, oh, no, I'm playing good enough to where they'll want me to come back. And it was like, no, you're playing good enough. You got your value up. Get out of here. You just a stopgap for these young dudes. You know what I mean? So what can we get for you? And those are all things that I experienced, and I realized, and that I went through that. I went through all those different emotions, man. At trade deadline, I was always like, oh, man, I ain't playing good enough. They about to get rid of me, or I'm playing too good. They're gonna trade me. Those are all things that go through these guys' heads, man. Like, I've been there, I've done it. They're human. And with all the social media now, there's no way they don't see it. And there's no way it doesn't affect them. You know what I mean? Like, it does. But at the end of the day, they're going to show up each and every day, and they're going to go through their routine. They're going to do the things that they need to do. But I guarantee you, in somebody's mind, they're thinking about it.
Yeah, well, that's something we have in common with them because we're thinking about it too, and we're gonna and we're gonna keep thinking about it even after the trade deadline. All these moves that the team can or will or won't do, and that's what makes doing this a lot of fun. So we appreciate everybody for listening. Be sure to follow us on all the social medias wherever you get your podcasts, and we appreciate all of you. So for Austin Jackson, Cody Stavenhagen, I'm Kieran Steckley. Everybody have a great day.